He brought comic book hero Hellboy to life. Now he's bringing 2 more movies to New Zealand. Please welcome Peter Briggs. Welcome to the show.
It's great to be here, thanks.
Hey, now you're bringing 2 movies to New Zealand. Of course,
I'm trying to,
the New Zealand film industry, well, trying is the operative word. The New Zealand film industry has been in the news a lot. Let's talk about what you'd like to do first. So you've got 2 movies, Panzer 88 and Mortis Rex. Tell us a little bit about the films you'd like to make here.
Panzer 88 is the one that we hope will go first. We've had some developments in the last few weeks where at AFM, the American film market, our financing has caught up with us on Mortis Rex, so we've been bouncing back and forth on both of them. Panzer 88 is a Second World War movie. It's about a German tank crew in Russia. There's some concept art from it. You know, they come across this malevolent demon which keeps coming after them over and over and over again. So it's a tight-knit story of 5 guys in a tin can with a, you know, a Weta Workshop type creature that's causing them strife. So that's one of them, and the second one is Mortis Rex.
So we're talking about a $40 million movie?
It's $40 million New Zealand, yeah. You know, by international standards, that's not an awful lot. By New Zealand standards, it's a good whack. And you know, the filmmaking environment here allows you to make those movies on a budget. You know, I love the whole number 8 fencing wire mentality here, which you know can get you a movie that looks like it costs $90 million on a fraction of that budget.
Because you read, was it in Richard Taylor's or Weta's website that they had built a tank, and you
That's
thought,
how I ended up here.
I need a tank.
Absolutely. we were looking at shooting in possibly Germany and Poland and Finland, and we figured that we'd have to make some rough kind of thing. And when I saw that on the website, I immediately got in touch with Richard Taylor, and over the course of a week or so, he convinced me that not only should they make this tank for us, but we should bring the production here.
You could make the film cheaper in Europe. They've got bigger subsidies.
There's no doubt about it. You know, I'm actually taking a huge financial hit coming here because the government, as it stands, doesn't support mid-range movies of the kind I'm at. We fail to meet the criteria for those budget ranges. And you know, there are studios of increasingly better standard, unfortunately, in the European countries that have recently been made from custom ground up. The only thing that exists here is Stone Street Studios. So now with The Hobbit taking those spaces, we're finding it very challenging to find a facility that will be able to accommodate these movies.
I just want to go back and say, so you said you're taking a financial hit to bring the movie here. Why come here then?
Because primarily Weta Workshop is the main reason. I have to admit that. But you guys have the best technicians in the world. Park Road Post, the post-production facility, is better than anything on the studio lots in Los Angeles. I mean, it's state-of-the-art. Those guys are incredible, and I think that the awards that they've been nominated and won over the years, that speaks for themselves. There is the attitude of the can-do attitude here, which I find great, and the landscape suits itself to both of my stories. It would, you know, be better for me, obviously, if we had the kind of incentives that, you know, have obviously not to the level of The Hobbit, but correspondingly for our movies. But it's a tough one.
I know Peter Jackson's asked you not to talk too much about this, but we'll have a bit of a dig and see him.
Really said that. I mean, you know, I think it's prudent to, you know, I'm here in a perspective as a...
I'm talking more about the dispute. Where would you consider yourself a player in the recent film dispute?
No, I think I was an unexpected onlooker. I was only generally going to come here for 2 weeks, and then I ended up extending out for 2 months. I thought I was going to be doing some storyboarding, and you just got sucked in by a process of osmosis. You know, this is a film industry that deserves to flourish, and as somebody bringing in these productions here, I wanted to give my support to them.
Did you think the result was what it should have been? Do you think the government should have got involved?
I think probably the government had to get involved. I think that we had a situation with a foreign entity coming in, affecting the livelihoods of New Zealanders.
You're talking about the Australian Union?
The Australian Union, the MEAA, yeah. And a really almost cartoonish situation with Equity here, behaving in a way that wasn't democratic for its members.
Do you think there was a real threat the New Zealand film industry could be down the toilet?
Yes. Yes, I said as much at Stone Street when I was asked to speak with Jonathan King, the director of Black Sheep and Under the Volcano. We were very concerned, and it's still viewed that way on an international stage, that New Zealand is risky, and it's going to take some concerted effort from the government now to amend that. We know it's not. I mean, this is a great industry to be in. It's a great country to make movies in. The government has to help and be seen to help. I voiced as much to Jerry Brownlee the night of the Hobbit resolution, when he was obviously very pleased, and rightly so. But, you know, there needs to be a strategy in place for mid-range films.
So what are you going to do if Sir Peter Jackson, he owns the studios, he's busy in those studios. Yes. You're out here to have a look at Avalon today, but are you talking about maybe some Chinese investment?
Well, that came up last week. There was a situation. I was a guest speaker at the SPADA conference, the producers' conference in Auckland, and I met some investors who were very keen to build a new studio, a custom studio from the ground up, which honestly, if this country is going to have movies of the caliber of Captain America and Green Lantern and the Batman movies, all of which are going into England, in the same sort of places that Harry Potter's been in, and the English film community is not in a good way. So the fact that those movies are going in there instead of here, when they could so readily do that if the space was available, and has been available at Stone Street for the last few years, but now unfortunately the Hobbit is taking up that space, and it would be great to have another facility here.
Because we're basically dependent on Sir Peter Jackson, aren't we? The whole industry can't rely on one guy bringing in a big film every couple of years.
I think Peter's been obviously extremely good for the industry here, and Richard Taylor and Weta have put it on a world stage. But yes, you're right, that does need to change. Peter, in his government paper that he gave a few months ago, talked about you know, rules for changing the industry, and this was all before any of this fracas boiled up, and I think that is a very good foundation for doing things. And right now we're in a state of flux. I think the government can actually change the economy here in terms of the film industry that will put it on the world stage. I don't think, you look historically, that you have the communist and socialist countries had film industries which were inextricably linked. That's never happened in a democratic society before, and the fact now that the New Zealand government is prepared to make these changes, I think the time is ripe to reform the industry from the ground up and put it on centre stage. Because frankly, I don't want to make a movie in Eastern European countries unless I have to. The atmosphere is far more conducive, the technicians are great, there is that great attitude, the landscape's fantastic. On paper, everything is here. It just needs government support.
Let's get away from the politics and chat about some fun. Now, you wrote Hellboy, so it was a comic, right? And then you saw the comic and adapted it for a screenplay. Was this a fun thing to write?
Yeah, I was a huge fan of the comic book anyway, so when I was approached to do that, it was a dream job, and I was on the movie actually a couple of years before Guillermo del Toro came onto it, and it turned out pretty well, I think.
You've done also Alien versus Predator.
Yeah, I've written on a variety of movies over the years, Alien versus Predator, Judge Dredd, War of the Worlds, lots of stuff you probably wouldn't even have heard of, and you know, the writing, the way you get credits on movies is fairly labyrinthine. On Judge Dredd, for example, I was one of 12 writers, and you know, you don't see them anymore.
Writing by committee, that sounds dangerous.
It is, and that's why a lot of movies turn out as badly as they do.
We will talk about that in just a sec, but were you a comic guy as a kid?
Huge comic guy, yeah. Huge comic guy, continue to be so.
Love them?
Love comic books, yeah.
A man in a comic store?
A man in a comic store, I'm afraid so. I'm the geek with the Rolex now.
Ironically, those movies that you wrote, you lost control, basically. I mean, the control gets taken off the writer, it goes to a director.
It does.
Del Toro tried to rewrite Hellboy.
Oh, Guillermo did rewrite Hellboy. I mean, it's as much, you know, Guillermo's movie as mine, and did a damn good job with it.
You went into dispute with him about it. I mean, the credit is everything, isn't it?
No,
for the viewer,
I didn't go into a dispute. As a member of the Writers Guild of America, when a director is involved on a movie, it automatically becomes a rewrite process.
All right.
Yeah.
Hey, Peter, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Pleasure.
Please stick around for a couple of years. Spend your money here.
I really want to. That's my plan. And many more movies besides.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for your time today.
Pleasure.
All right, Peter's going to give a talk at the New Zealand Film Archive in Wellington. That's tomorrow night. Our website has all the details on that.